for the editing role. So I'd rather take somebody else's words and make them better than being the one drafting.
That is just music to obviously my ears, but should be to everyone else's ears, you know?
People often think that editors are frustrated writers. They're going to find a way to work with words even if they can't be published themselves, but that's not the case with me. I'd much rather be working with someone else's words.
That's why you're a good editor. Now, how does that compare to editing for a magazine, for instance, or how does that compare? Do you think there's a different personality that edits for magazines, that edits books, that, you know, does, I don't know, children's books? Or?
Sure. Well, the timelines are different for magazines. There's quicker turnaround and shorter text to work with, but you're still working with a style sheet and trying to make the author's word shine, and you're thinking about what the market is going to be looking for. So I think the difference really is just a matter of timelines. Can you spend 6 weeks working on a book versus 6 days working on an article? The editing process, I'm not talking about the writing process. But
they seem like adrenaline junkies.
Mm-hmm. That could be deadline driven, but I hit deadlines too.
Right. And do you look around and say, there are other fields of editing or other areas of editing that I would love to try, or a book on, I don't know, football in Minnesota that I'd love to learn about and try? And
one of the nice things about working for a regional publisher is that there are so many different topics that we can cover. If it's related to the upper Midwest, we can publish on it. So I've been able to work in, say, immigration studies or forest history or in sports or in architecture. So there are many different ways to talk about Minnesota, and that's something that I love about working at the Minnesota Historical Society, because it's not that I'm slotted into one area, it seems. If it's related to the upper Midwest, I can be working on it. And cooking actually is my dream portion of the job. I'm so glad that we've gotten to cookbooks and that I'm able to manage those projects on a shelf and be noticed.
And they'll sell.
That'll sell. That's good too.
And so does Minnesota Book Award, does that help sell books? Do the awards help sell books?
They do. They bring more awareness of the book, of the title, because they're announced in the newspaper, and then libraries pick up on them and then bring in the authors to do events. So more people are aware of your books once you earn a Minnesota Book Award, or even are nominated. Once the nominations are announced, then libraries start picking up on authors that are named.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I was blown away. We saw these people, these two authors give speeches at this event we attended a week and a half ago, or whatever it was, and they were very thankful of booksellers. And, you know, this is a whole new world to me. It never occurred to me that there would be that relationship, that there would be a relationship between authors and booksellers to the extent that there is.
Right. So you're thinking of booksellers hand-selling the book. They know their customers, and when they see a book that's appropriate for a particular customer, they're going to hand it to them and say, you should read this. And the trust relationship is there. The consumer is probably going to pick it up when recommended.
Anything I'm missing? Well, you know, I mean, can you dish a little bit on... you know, you go to the bookstore, you pick up a book. I'm not saying you either did or didn't get to publish it, but you pick it up and you're like, oh, this is a disaster. This should have gone this isn't tight enough.
That I worked on, books I worked on, or books that I didn't?
No, just like...
Okay, you find something. I was going to say earlier when you were talking about not being aware of the editorial process and what an editor does, it's best actually if you don't think about who the editor for a project was, but when you notice things that are wrong, that's when you say, oh, this person needed a better editor or an editor. Yeah. So if you're looking at text that maybe goes on for 100 pages more than it should, or if you're finding errors that are glaring to the average reader, that's painful. And I do take notice of that. Although I can turn it off, I'm not always reading for correctness necessarily. So I have friends who say they don't want to email me because they're afraid I'm going to proofread their email messages. But I don't operate that way. I know
that's such a lame excuse. That's bullshit.
Okay, thank you.
Tell them that that's ridiculous.
Write to me often.
So we're here in this building in this city. Can you, I mean, favorite author, is that something that's just too, you can't answer that question, or is there a name or two that come to mind?
People that I've worked with?
Or that are, that inspire you? I was going to give you the obvious Fitzgerald, you know. Who do you read?
What do I read? I like to read fiction. I've been reading more and more nonfiction, and I've got this to-read list that is a mile long. But I'm finding more often now that I'm reading online in little snippets as opposed to sitting down with a book, and I regret that, actually. I should be spending more time with a book. I have a book club that brings in different authors for me to think about reading that I wouldn't have found on my own, so I enjoy having that and a deadline, so I make sure those books, or I try to have them finished on time for our monthly meetings. There aren't any authors that I have to have their latest book, and there are so many authors that I still have to read that are on this to-read list that I really need to be working on.
But when you know, got that, I don't know, who was your Holden Caulfield or, you know?
Favorite author for me, Ernest Hemingway, actually. Yeah? Yep. I've read The Sun Also Rises a number of times, and any of his works I really enjoy. Papa Hemingway.
People don't talk about him as much as they should, I feel like, but that just kind of goes in cycles. But now they're talking more about Fitzgerald. Maybe they'll start talking about Hemingway again. I don't know. If you weren't editing right now, what would you do?
What would I do? I don't know, because I love editing so much. I freelance edit, so not only do I work my 8 to 9 hour day, but I will go home and edit as well, freelance projects. So I wonder if I could do something with cooking, if I could do something with baking, but I think I'm not careful enough. I think I would be frustrated.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous. Not careful.
I don't know. You know, I would read anyone once, honestly, and then maybe not go back to their other books, for example. I have an issue with time, and still, if I start a book, I finish it. So even if it's someone that I'm not really enjoying or I don't quite get, I'm going to power through to the end. And there's some really terrible books on my bookshelf that powered through to the end. Maybe not the best use of my time, but once I start, I have to finish.
I don't do that.
I know, you're smart.
I drop it. If I don't like it, like
As you
3 or 4
As I
chapters
should.
into it. And that's been some good books too. Like, no, sorry, it's not for me. Who knows? That's maybe a little. Maybe I should. I don't know, maybe halfway or something. So self-publishing. You know, it seems like, you know, especially when you're talking about that kind of niche market, you know. But the great disadvantage would be in not having an editor, and not having an extra set of eyes, not just correcting or proofreading or looking over your shoulder for grammatic error, but for, you know, stylistically.
You can always hire for that. I've been hired to freelance on projects that end up being self-published. They're about topics not related to the Minnesota Historical Society, so that I can take them on. They're a different region or what have you. And if someone's willing to pay for the work, I can do a really good job for their manuscripts. Then they can go and self-publish, and then their perhaps larger problem is the marketing. How are they going to make people aware of their book? Where is it distributed? How are people going to get their hands on copies?
Who was it that I just read got a 6-figure advance for a cookbook? And you know, she was I want to say a Top Chef contestant or something like that. I mean, you know, what? You know, like where it seems to me, on the surface, anyways, there's not very much money in publishing.
So you're looking for a blockbuster book that's going to carry along some of the other ones. Many publishers operate on that model.
And does the Minnesota Historical Society Press? Not really. You publish what you believe in. What's
Right.
a regional
We've
book
got a limited number of slots, and we're looking for books that can carry their own weight. Some of them we expect to sell more than others, but we do look at the numbers beforehand and think about how many copies to print, and then think about what that lifetime looks like for that particular book. We're not trying to squeeze all them into the same rubric.
Right. Awesome. Okay. That's it. That's all I got.
job.
Thank you.
It wasn't so painful. I hope the editing goes